My name is Halle Leversidge, and this is my project for my Action Research virtual poster presentation. So just going through my slides here, I'm going to start talking about my problem statement. So for my original problem, I really wanted to look into the different types of learners to see how I can better teach them all that I can and use their strengths and needs as a way of guiding my practice. But my teacher made me realize that that is something that we should all be doing, and that is something that there's a lot of research on, and it's already been answered that it is beneficial to students to cater the pedagogy based on the different learning styles. So I decided to change my question a little bit. I've always been curious about using reward systems in the classroom, so I decided that I wanted to look more into the different types of reward systems that you could use in the classroom, the benefits, and maybe the not so great things about them and not so beneficial for the students, and the impact that it actually has on student learning after using it for a selected period of time. So in my case, a whole term. So I really wanted to see how it impacted motivation and engagement in the classroom, as well as my classroom management and the behavior of the students in the class. So I narrowed down my research question to: how will I use the reward system in the classroom impact students' learning and engagement over the span of a semester and on their learning skills and work habits? So here I have my old question about multiple intelligences, and then my second attempt. So my partner gave me a lot of good feedback, because originally my second question was over the span of a long-term assessment, but as a teacher it's more realistic to make it something that you will be able to monitor in the classroom. So I decided to do over the span of a semester, so a term from January until June, so that I would have the original time from September to December to kind of observe the students and see where the reward system could benefit them in the classroom, and then on to I could start it in January and then see their progress. So some of the relevant terms that I came across in my research. So as I was looking up this topic, these are some of the terms that I came across. So the first is reward system. So it's a management system set in place in the classroom where the students do something that you set out for them, like a positive behavior, then they receive some sort of reward, which can be a small reward like stickers or little pencils for primary students, or it can be they have a period to have free play, or they can do an activity that they really enjoy. So this can be both independent as well as a group, so cooperative. So my first type of reward system that I came across was the independent reward. So a student has to do the action independently, and then the reward is based on their individual action. So if there's a student that is having behavioral issues in the classroom, then you can maybe use an independent reward system to guide just them in their learning so that they can have those individual rewards. The next one is the competitive rewards. So this one is students will compete against each other to achieve awards in the classroom. So you might have different groups to get the motivation up. So students like to be competitive and they like to play games as long as it's not too serious. But this way it gives them a little bit more of motivation to kind of win. And then there's the cooperative rewards, which students must work together with their peers to achieve a positive action to then receive an award. So they all need to work together to do these positive actions or these behavioral changes, and then they receive the award. And this is all based on different types of motivation. So there's intrinsic motivation, which is driven by your internal reward system. So the motivation stems from an internal want to provide satisfaction on yourself. So for example, I want to behave properly in class so that I can do better for myself. And then there's extrinsic motivation, which is based on an award system. So you do something, you get a sticker. So the sticker is the motivation for the act, not something within you, like intrinsic motivation. So while I was doing this research, this is how I kind of found those relevant terms. I came across some really good articles and books that really helped to guide my research question and narrow down what I really wanted to know. So this first one, it's called Extrinsic Reward and Intrinsic Motivation, a review with implications for the classroom. So it's by J.A. Bates, and it's an article that looks at different types of reward systems and, in this author's point of view, the artificial sense of success that it provides for classroom management. So he says that it's kind of an artificial way of guiding your students instead of something that builds skills and habits that will last in them. So he says that he doesn't really agree with reward systems because it gives the reward as something that you get and then you move on from. It's not something that it's an extrinsic reward. It's not an intrinsic reward. It doesn't make a difference inside for students. So it doesn't go hand in hand with long-term motivation, as it says here, but it's rather self-focused with short-term results. So I thought this one was really interesting because as I was doing my research, I obviously wanted to get different points of view on a reward system and people who had tried it in their classroom and get their experiences and their perspective on whether it would actually make a difference in the classroom and in motivation and engagement. So this point of view really did help me to guide that some teachers do not enjoy to use it because they feel that it does not make a long-term impact on their students. Going on from that, my next article that I found was called Systems of Student and Teacher Motivation Towards a Qualitative Definition by C. Ames and R. Ames. So this article looked at motivation to see if reward systems in the classroom impact student motivation. So it explored the different types of reward systems. When I first went into this project, I didn't really realize the different types of motivation that you can have in the classroom. I just thought more of I think I was focused on the competitive one, so everybody kind of in for themselves, competing against each other, trying to get rewards. But I realized that there was different ways to do it in the classroom that might be more effective. So personally, when I was reading about it, I really identified with the cooperative reward system. I felt that this system could really encourage students to work together to reach a goal so that it is something that guides all of them, but will bring more students to success. Because sometimes when you're working on your own or it's just competitive, it feels like you're failing if you don't reach your goal against the other students. So maybe with cooperative goals or even independent goals, you'll be able to reach those and actually make a change in yourself. And then the last one that I looked at was really interesting because it looked at the process of implementing reward systems on behavioral students. It gave me an actual experiment that some teachers did. So on behavioral students in grade 2, they had a look at their behaviors and they decided to use rewards to try to guide those behaviors. So the students did certain tasks and then they would receive rewards, but it found that most of the behavioral students actually did not respond well to the reward system. There were some students that it worked for and it was great. And then there were some students that it had no impact on because the reward was just not something that really pushed them and motivated them to complete the change in themselves. I think that it doesn't work just like everything else in the classroom. It doesn't work for all students. You need to be able to base these types of reward systems and these types of choices in the classroom on the needs and the strengths of the students and not necessarily a one for all type of situation. So after looking at this, all of these pieces of literature, it really opened my eyes to reward systems in the classroom and that maybe it is a temporary solution and it's something that we can work with to guide and motivate students, but not necessarily the only thing we should be doing in the classroom to guide those behaviors and to really see a difference. But of course, it would have to be actually tested and tried out in the classroom to see if it does have a positive impact. But I think if I were to do this project actually in a classroom, I would really have to base it on the individual student and really see the individual growth in every single student, because I can't just get a overall snapshot of the classroom to see how it's working. Instead, I have to try to open up my observations to every single individual needs of the student. So this brings me to my actual action research plan. So the way that I plan to track this system to see if it makes an impact in the classroom is first through observations, through anecdotal notes to track their behavior. So I selected this because my research question is really dependent on the impact of the student's behavior in regards to the reward system. And this way I can have kind of a piece of paper or like a Google Doc with every student's name on it, and I can write down what I observe throughout the semester. So I can see even little things a couple of times per week to see where they are when we first start this in January to where they end up in June, to see if it really did make any impact on their learning. So through this, I will use observations as well as the records of the reward system. So the records of, okay, Johnny did this in class today and he received this award based on this, so that I can really see, okay, he did that, but did his behavior change from when he succeeded in that to the end of June? Was it just a temporary change, or did it actually improve over the course of the semester based on the records that I have? And then last, I really wanted to keep it completely well-rounded, and my triangulation of data, I really wanted to make sure that I get perspectives from everywhere. So I have the observations, I have full records of the reward system, and then I wanted to get a student perspective as well. So I wanted to see how the students feel about the behavior and the impact of the reward system, and if it's making a positive impact on their learning, and if they feel that it is motivating them towards success. So I would do this around every month to make sure that the students are still engaged and still growing and learning. So all of these will be from the students in the classroom, happening right then. And I want to make sure that it's only the individual impact on each student, because the individual impact will be something that I can share with the student, with the parents, but just confidentially between us to guide their learning process, as each student should be focused on within the classroom. So my timeline of my data that I want to assess will be ongoing. So I will try to make observations and anecdotal notes on a daily basis about different students. It's unrealistic to try to say I will make one about each student every day. So I decided that I will have a minimum of 3 observations per student per week. And I will also do a weekly check-in for the reward records to make sure that we are keeping up with our rewards and that we are documenting everything and we don't miss any recording of the rewards. And then we'll have that student reflection survey every month at the beginning for sure, and then maybe by the end a little bit more spaced out to see if they are being impacted positively by it. So all of the data that I will get, I think, will really guide my teaching. I think that it will have a really positive impact to see how students are motivated and to see what kind of motivation is actually beneficial to their learning. I think being in the classroom, you need to be able to adapt to the needs and the strengths of your students. And by watching this reward system and keeping a documented log of how they're growing in the classroom will be really beneficial to my teaching practice. Thank you so much for listening to my slides, and I look forward to doing more research like this in the future.